All right. So first of all, welcome. I don't know who all here, a few people came after we did the initial conversation, but I'm just going to do a quick screen share with the demo of CiviCRM and how it integrates with Backdrop, kind of what it does, what it can do, and probably most of the time will be opened up to discussion if any questions arise or if you have anything you came with, and we can talk them through then. So I've set up a little demo site here for, hypothetically, this little town of Pawnee, Indiana, wants to run their town website on Backdrop and use CiviCRM. And so basically, people who have come to this event understand the basics of what Backdrop does as a content management system. CiviCRM as a constituent or contact relationship management system manages contacts and relationships between contacts and custom data and a variety of things. So I generally think of the two as running side by side. So you have the website, the front end that people come and interact with, and then you have the CRM where the information about the people resides. And so on this side, I've installed it here, and you can see the Backdrop menu here has an additional item for CiviCRM. So when I click on that, we get into the second side of things, the Civi side of things. And you can see I've done a little tweaking here just so that the Civi menu will now show up underneath the Backdrop menu. You can have access to both of them. Excuse me. And if we walk through here, we've got a quick search on the left. So if you're looking for a particular person, their email or their name, you can just start typing, and then it'll pre-populate, and you can click directly into that record. And we'll go into a record shortly to show you what that looks like. If you want a little more specificity in terms of what you're searching for, you can use a variety of different ways to find things, whether that's contacts or contributions or mailings, memberships, event participants, that kind of thing. So a variety of different ways to search and find what you need here. I'll do a demo of that in a moment. In terms of contacts that you can keep in the system here, the default options are individual, household, and organization. And within those, you can customize subtypes of each of those. And so a household will actually group other individuals within it. But in this demo, it included all the sample data that Civi installs. So they had set up a few subtypes here for student and parent and staff. And one benefit of a subtype is you can search on that subtype, but you can also create custom fields that only apply to that subtype, and relationships that only apply to that subtype. And we'll get to the relationships in just a moment as we go through the menus here. Contacts can be grouped, they can be tagged, which will help you as you're searching and looking for different contacts. Can be imported. And as with any CRM system, you will inevitably end up with duplicates, so you can run with a variety of rules, go through and find those duplicates and then merge them together into a single contact without losing valuable information. Civi also allows you to collect contributions, which can be anything from donations to event fees to membership fees. It's the types of contributions you can accept. It's a customizable list of types of content that you can adapt, you can adjust. And it allows you to create contribution pages sort of on the fly for special uses, whether that's selling memberships, whether that's just a donation page or a special campaign page. There's some deeper features I'm not going to get into too much here, but personal campaign pages, if you want to allow users of your site to create their own campaigns, pages to invite their friends and family to contribute and then track how much they've helped raise. You can create events, and again, the event type, like most things in Civi, is customizable. You can create different types of events, different templates for types of events to save you time when you're creating a new event. If it follows a pattern, you just can choose the template that you've set up in the past, and it'll pre-fill a bunch of things for you. And then you can do online registration with events with or without payment, depending if you've set up Civic Contribute, the contribution section. You can also use Civic for mailings if you want to avoid the case where you've got MailChimp data over here and you've got people interacting with MailChimp here. So that data is getting updated. And then you have, you know, other data over here that's getting updated over here and ending up with outdated information somewhere, probably in both places. So you can kind of try to centralize everything under one umbrella and do the mailings through Civic. You can send those messages directly through your own server. If you're comfortable doing that, you can also integrate it with a third-party mailer to handle the actual mailing, which then reports back to Civic in terms of bounces and unsubscribes and so on. Civic's got a pretty good membership system, which is again customizable. You can set up a number of different types of membership, whether they're fixed period for a calendar year, whether they're rolling, it's 1 year from the date you sign up, or 1 month, however you want to configure it. And then you can have a variety of different reports to pull out the information, which also can be customizable. So just for a quick drop in on each of these, the deeper levels on these menus now. If we jump down to manage groups, so here you can put contacts in groups just manually, one by one, or they can sign up into a group on the front end if you have a form that allows them to put themselves into like a mailing group, for example. But you can also do searches using this the different search options here, and then save those searches as what's called a smart group. So just as an example of that, here I've created a smart group called Pawnee Residents, which is all contacts in the database that have Pawnee as their city. And so you can see it just pulls them up. You can click into a contact here, and then you get the basic summary, which would include all the email, age, if you've been collecting that, any custom fields down here, addresses. If you've been collecting employer, that'll link here, and that'll be connected by a relationship over here. So it's, and then each of these tabs gives you a deeper level of information about this one contact. So if you've got everything under one umbrella here, if they've made a donation on your site through Civic, that will show up here under contributions. Administrators can also come back here and submit if someone's called up and said, I want to make a contribution, you can submit it here or record a check that came in the mail. Likewise, if the contact has a membership or more than one membership, they'll list here. If they've attended events in the past, you can click here and see kind of what their level of engagement has been with the events that you've been holding. And then activities will track a variety of different things. Like if you've sent them a bulk mail, it'll track it here. A lot of things happen automatically and get recorded as activities, but you can also come in and record different touches or different contacts that you've made with contacts. So if you've had a phone call, you can record that as an activity and take notes for the next person who comes in and is going to interact with this contact. They may need to know some information about how often they've been contacted, what you've talked about, however you want to do that. Relationships gives you the ability to link different contacts via a relationship. So if we do, in this case, I'm going to do employee of, even though I could do this in a different way. So if I do this and I connect Andy Dwyer as an employee of the Pawnee Parks and Rec department, and then I save that, that connects him to this contact record, which is an organizational record for the Pawnee Parks and Rec department. And I haven't gone to the extent of actually connecting more people to this organization, but if I had, the Pawnee contact record would show a list of all the people that were employees or connected in some way via relationship. So the groups will show which groups they've been added to or which groups they've added themselves to, as well as a little quick way to get to the smart groups that they're a part of, the saved searches. Likewise to activities, you can record different notes for contacts here as well, or tag them in a variety of ways, depending on your organizational needs and workflow. So that's kind of the basic contact and functionality that I was going to go over from the Civi side of things. Obviously, you've got the backdrop and you've got the Civi, and there's got to be some middle space where they interact too. So if we jump back to the front side here, I've created, you can, one of the powerful things about Civi with Backdrop and Drupal as well is that you can attach it to views so that you can pull Civi data out into Backdrop views, for example. So in this case, I've created a view that pulls in anybody who has Pawnee as their city. And then you can, if the contact record has a picture, it pulls it in here. I've also set it up to, in this case, have contextual links for administrators. So if you're looking at the list on the front end, you can jump in directly into Civi to edit that contact. Just to give a sense of how some of the integration of views works. I set up a events page that pulls in active events that are set up in Civi. So we've got the Entertainment 720 grand opening coming up, and I'm just going to, well, let me click here first. So this is an event in Civi. Was someone asking a question? So this is an event that's set up in Civi, and I've activated online registration. So you have the information here, and then it provides a register now button. And then in this case, my user is connected to, my Backdrop user is connected to the Shauna Melway tweet contact. So in this case, all you have to do to register is indicate how many people you're going to register into your name. And it's pre-filled for me because I'm already logged into the site. And confirming, click continue, and there I'm registered for the event. So just as a quick demo here, if I go to jump to my record in Civi, you'll now see the events tab is populated with the Entertainment 720 grand opening that I just registered for. If it was a paid event, you'll see which fee level they selected and that kind of thing. The other thing I've got on the front end is it's like a sample contribution page for donations. So the Little Sebastian Memorial Fund is collecting donations. And I haven't gone to the extent of setting up a payment processor on here, but this is the test processor, so it'll just let me type in a bunch of random stuff, I believe. No. Anyway, I figured it wasn't worth actually configuring a credit card processor for this demo. But if I had done that and contributed here, then it would likewise show up in the contributions tab as a the only other thing that I want to mention before I'll check if any of the other Civi folks want to mention something I've forgotten. But one of the real powerful things about the Civi capability is that you have basically endless customization. You can create custom fields that apply to contacts, certain types of contacts that apply to contributions, certain types of contributions, events, memberships. All these things can have customizable fields that are put in place specifically for your organization's workflow. And then if you noticed it's pre-filling information for me based on my contact. You can integrate, this is just basic functionality. If a contact has a user account and it matches up, then it'll pre-fill like that by default. But you can also integrate based on groups. If they're in a certain group, they get a certain role in Backdrop. If they have a certain type of membership that's active, they get a certain role in Backdrop and that kind of thing. which can be really powerful for you know, websites where you're going to have a members only section where you've got content that people are only supposed to have access to if they have a paid membership, for example. And then if their membership expires, they lose the role, they lose the access automatically. So it's not requiring you to manually keep track of all this stuff. It sort of happens in an automated way. Herb or Pete, anybody else want to jump in with anything before we just open the floor up completely?
I missed part of it. So those contextual links you created, or is that with a module you created, or is that just?
That's actually core backdrop functionality.
Well, the contextual links, and to get them to link to Civi.
Yeah. So if I go under views, and I find the view that I set up for Civi contacts here. So it's a backdrop view that's pulling in fields. In this case, it's pulling from Civi, but that's a little bit beside the point. And then I have a hidden field here, which is the edit contact link that Civi provides. But you could also do this for like edit a node link that Backdrop provides. And then Backdrop also provides the ability to add contextual links. And I just check the box to insert edit contact as a contextual link.
Right. Yeah, I always forget about that. Cool.
So that can be done for Backdrop aside from Civi as well, if you want to provide ways for admins to jump to editing nodes or editing users or whatever.
Laren, I think extensions are worth mentioning. I don't know that I heard that word yet coming from you.
That's a good point.
And I'll think about a few other things maybe, but I don't want to take away from opening up the floor.
So, so Civi allows you to install extensions which, you know, are roughly parallel to Backdrop modules, let's say, but it is for Civi in particular, and it's kind of CMS agnostic. So if you're running Civi on Drupal or WordPress or Joomla, you can also install these same extensions, generally speaking, I think. And you know, that allows you to, let's see what shows up by default here. You can have, you know, extensions to provide different kinds of reporting or different, you know, payment processors, different kinds of functionality, summary fields, which provides those fields that summarize a person's contributions over the course of time. So you can see, you know, like average yearly giving or, you know, that kind of summary. Obviously not going to go through all of the extensions, but that is an important piece of how Civi functionality can get extended. And I am, if you look here, I have installed on here the Shoreditch extension, which gives it's not, I don't think formally released yet, it's still in beta, and it'll, I think eventually become part of Civi Core, but it's a facelift for the interface, which looks quite dated in default Civi installation. So that's, if you're familiar with Civi, that's why it's looking a little different if you haven't used Shoreditch.
The other things that I can think of are, and this might be getting a little bit too deep, but it's just other pieces of Civi that have taken some pretty major leaps are kind of this improvement in the whole building mailings with Mosaico. Is that, I don't know, you can decide, Laren.
I definitely don't have that set up here.
Okay.
But that's something, if people are interested, I would say that's something that you maybe worth exploring afterwards, or if anybody else who's on the call has that set up and wants to do a demo of that, I'm fine with that. It's basically, well, let's show you what the default Civi mailing looks like first of all.
It's an area where a lot of people have some functionality, and there's been a lot of evolution from this to Mosaico.
Right. So this is the default screen you get when you're going to create a new mailing, and it gives you basically an HTML area here where you can you can pre-fill it with templates, but it just basically puts it all into the WYSIWYG editor, and you've got to go in and change it here. What Neil's referring to is an extension that integrates the Mosaico library, and it provides more of a little more of like a drag and drop and build the mailing with blocks kind of a interface.
Thanks. And then the final thing, and then I'm really done, is just the importance of the module, of the reporting module.
Yeah, is there anything in particular you want me to go over about the reports?
I don't know, I may have just blinked or shut down for a minute, but just sharing that it exists and how powerful it is.
Yeah, so you have, out of the box, you have a variety of different reports for different types of uses with Civi. As mentioned, there's some extensions that sort of make these reports a little more complex or a little more configurable or do something in a slightly different way. But you can also create customized reports. And if I just pull one up here to show you, I guess we've got one employee so far, but you can select which fields you want to show up in the report here, and then it'll pull in the contacts that match your filters here, and it'll pull in the columns that you've selected here. And this automatically allows you to select some customized fields here as well. And then you can export this for use elsewhere as a CSV. You can set it up to email on a scheduled basis with scheduled jobs that get fired when cron runs. And so you can say, email this report once a month automatically, that kind of thing. Anybody have? I guess we can just open it up wide. Then anybody have any questions?
I have one. Without getting into too much detail, I mean, you've got a site that you've obviously spent some time getting pretty well set up and connected. What is the level of effort of getting a Backdrop site connected to a CiviCRM site? How much work is involved in getting the two connected and communicating with each other and all that?
Yeah, I mean, you basically install Civi, and then there's one additional step to connect it so that Views works. And I can show you, it's got a, right here under System Settings, there's a special page that gives you the, you need to insert this into settings.php. And I think that might only be if you're running them in separate databases. If you're running them in the same database, which is possible. I don't think it's recommended, at least it used not to be recommended, then you need to do this. But yeah, it's really, in terms of getting it installed and connected, it's not that much work. But getting Civi configured for your organization, can take some time because.
And that's going to be true with any organization, probably.
Exactly. It depends.
That was actually. I'm sorry. I was waiting for that. Was the spot I was actually going to bring up here, because I was able to get Civi and Backdrop working together fine so that it ran, but then I had a huge dose of now what after that, and I'm wondering like where can I go to find the hello world example of Civi, like the fewest features, the thing to get it out the gate with sort of the least amount of configuration I can get away with.
I mean, you can install it with nothing pre-installed, or you can install it with sample data. But it really depends on the functionality you need, because each of these components that I mentioned, let me see here. If you're not going to be using Civi Event, let's say, you can turn that off. And actually, I show my bias because I've not really used Civi Case very much. But that's another powerful piece that lets you do case management. city pledge. If you, like a church is accepting pledges or whatever, you can that. And grants is for if you're giving out grants, I think, not if you're receiving them. But you can basically, turn off anything that you're not planning to use here, and it'll clean up all these menus and tighten it down to just what you're using for, cleaning up the interface. I don't know if that's kind of what you were getting at.
Yeah, how do I get to this menu of useful checkboxes that you're on here? Where's the?
See if I can get back to it here. When you first install, it'll take you to a configuration checklist, and you can kind of walk through one by one. And so, it recommends these are the things you should go through, and you've got localization settings, organizational settings. This is where the components we're just at, you can turn on off. It basically steps you through and says these are the pieces you should start with.
Okay.
And you get
so I guess approach is to go through that and to try to turn off as many checkboxes as I can and see if I'm still able to have a usable system. And
yeah, I mean, I guess the first,
it's a lot to comprehend at once. All the pieces, and yeah, eventually once you get familiar with the core.
The first approach would probably be to look at your needs and get those down in a list, and then say, because of these needs, which components do I need? Rather than just, having it all there in front of you and trying to figure it out with this overwhelming sense of things. So kind of like laying it out a little bit before you get to the install and configure what you plan to use.
I mean, it's a common issue. It's something we wrestle with in the Backdrop world, is to how much functionality to expose and how, and how to introduce functionality within the time frame that people can comprehend it.
Yeah, and I
haven't seen it before.
Just realized your comment about what to expose. I just realized I completely blanked on a very important piece of Backdrop Civi integration, which is web form CiviCRM. So it connects with web form, and if I can't remember if I set one of these up or not. Oh yeah, so I've set up if you only want to expose certain functionality to certain people, they don't necessarily need to go into the back end of Civi to do things. So in this case, I've set up a simple little form here, which allows someone who may not have access to the complete back end of Civi to add a contact to the database, and it only exposes first name, last name, picture, and city. And so you can, I was using this to populate the people real quickly because these are the only fields I was planning to enter. So I just created this form to put them in, hit submit, go back, put them in, hit submit, and it just, pushes them in there. So you can push information into Civi through a web form very, very easily. And that includes, if we later decided, this collection form that we have, we actually need the email address as well. We should have been collecting the email address. So you can go into the Civi tab, which is then created. And all of the fields that are available to you in Civi are showing up here as checkboxes. So if we say, we should have been collecting their email address, let's start collecting that. You can say, give me an email address, and we're going to ask for their home address. So, and
yeah, this is exactly what I was hoping for. Is there what's the path to get to this from? Is there a tutorial guide or something to go through this? Because what you just showed me, that web form integration, like precisely where I would like to start with Backdrop, right? Oh.
Docs.civi.
So Laren might get more direct route. I'm giving you everything, but.
Right.
So basically, I was going to say, if you go to docs.civicrm.org, you've got a number of different guides here to choose from. And if we go, pretty sure what you're talking about is in user guide. Let's see.
Right. I mean, I'm aware of actually how complicated CRM can be just inherently, because I tried similarly setting up a Salesforce installation, and you know, very similar to CiviCRM, like the same things I found tricky about CiviCRM, I also found tricky about Salesforce. Just the whole idea of, you know, understanding what you really need to know about your customers and how you want to track them.
Yeah, and I will say, speaking of Salesforce, the one big difference, well, there's a variety, but the thing that resonates with me is that Salesforce is a commercial product that can be shoehorned to try to work with nonprofits, whereas Civi is specifically built for nonprofits and nonprofit workflows. So I think it's a little smoother integration and use of Civi for nonprofit use, and that's kind of my my realm is nonprofits. So. But yeah, so here, actually the system administrator guide, and there's a CMS integration, Backdrop integration, and web form section here. So.
Oh, beautiful.
Laren, my question, this is Mark Hicks. My question is, what happens when you have updates to either Civi or to Backdrop? Is there any complications of having these running together?
I mean, the Backdrop updates happen the same. I mean, you should, if you're, it depends on your setup, whether you're, you know, live or whatever, but basically, yeah, it's a separate, you can't update Civi through the project installer from Backdrop, even though you can update Backdrop itself through the project installer. It's a little more complex than that. So there's, I think there's a variety of different places that'll walk through what that looks like, but it is more complex. You basically replace the code base, and then you have to run database updates for Civi to make sure it's updated to what the code base is expecting.
But so updates to Backdrop don't touch Civi.
Right. It's just the core folder that's getting replaced when you update Backdrop, not the modules folder, which is where the Civi module is. Yeah.
And as I recall that there's actually two databases. There's the Backdrop database and then another Civi database.
I was saying earlier, I think that's still how they recommend doing it, is two different databases. I think it's technically possible to run it under one, but for a variety of reasons, I think they recommend two.
But if there's two, then you can run Backdrop updates and not really worry about Civi. And that's really my question. And vice versa. If Civi comes out with some sort of, you know, required updates, there's a reasonable confidence that you can run that and not worry about its side effect on Backdrop.
I like the way you put that, reasonable confidence, yes.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's perfect, I know.
They work fairly well together though on the same database. I haven't had any problems.
Is that how you typically?
We've got a client on Pantheon, and you only get one database, so we've been running together for a few years. Had no problems.
Yeah, I mean, okay. This demo, it's just on one, just because it's actually really simple to set up that way.
Could you comment about the email third-party services? You mentioned that you could run email here, but there were, just give me an example of something to search for.
If you jump back in here a minute. So obviously I haven't set up anything on this one. This is kind of what you get out of the box here. So you have some default options here. You can use your own server's mail function, so the mail will come directly from your own server. That puts the responsibility on you in terms of if you start getting flagged as spam, or your reputation, and if your messages are showing up in everybody's spam, you've got to try to figure out how to get your server, to be more acceptable to the email systems. You can also use SMTP if you want to set up mailing through an outside service that you control. But you could also use this. Some of the third-party mailers will allow you to, they'll give you SMTP credentials that you can put in here. The trick there is that you've got to then you got to have a configuration set up when you're using anything really, but to make sure you're getting reports back in terms of bounces and so on, so you're not continually sending to addresses that don't exist and that kind of thing. A lot of the third-party mailers, and that's like Mandrill or MailChimp or not, sorry, Mandrill or Mailgun, things like that, will let you use their API in some way to send back the information about which ones bounced and which ones gave which codes, so that Civi can keep tracking, you know, I should stop sending to this address, or this is how many bounces you had on your last mailing, and that kind of thing. And those
extensions for some of them too.
Exactly, extensions would give you a lot of that information.
I had one more question. Is there an extension that will do a U.S. Post Office change of address update?
That's a good question. I think there is, but I honestly haven't used it. So I have to research, but I can send you I can look it up and send you that. Or if anybody knows, put it in chat. I wouldn't be surprised. I know that there's a variety of postal checkups for different countries, but I have not used that myself.
I'll send you an email. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Mark, there's a couple of I was going to say, Mark, there's a couple of people posting in chat about mailers.
Oh, I didn't look at chat.
Yeah, and there's a couple of them. Some of them haven't officially made it to the extension directory. GitHub might be another source, or yeah, if you want to email me, I can connect you to how the community interacts.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Actually, I can just put it in chat for you, Mike.
I'm sorry, I'm just scanning through the chat. I haven't seen that yet.
I think you ended up answering the questions inadvertently.
So, well, I will just mention that I don't have them on here to show. I probably should have done that, but some of one of the points I was going to touch on was the future of CiviCRM and Backdrop, and I mean one big part of the answer to that is right now, ballpark, I'm guessing, you know, like 70% of sites that sites that use Civi are probably on Drupal, and of that, probably 90% are Drupal 7. So depending how things play out with Drupal 7 end of life, I could see a substantial number of those coming to Backdrop if Drupal 8 or 9 is not a good fit for whatever reason for those groups. And then the other thing I was going to mention, we have some experimental, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So we have some experimental modules for Backdrop that we're playing with in our spare time, which one of them is to allow you to set up blocks or fields that pull in a page from CiviCRM, whether that's a contribution page or an event registration page. And I can see those being extended. And then the other one that's in an earlier stage, I don't have you know, even a working model of it yet, is I want to take the CiviCRM group sync functionality, which if you put contacts in a group, you can have it sync to a user role. I want to take that and duplicate and change it so that we have the ability to put contacts in a group, and then it creates a node for that contact and links them together. What that would do is allow you to, you know, have, you know, comments on a contact, or, you know, sort of a CiviCRM entity light. So Drupal has CiviCRM entity, and that has not yet been ported to Backdrop, although I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually does get ported. It would be kind of a simple out-of-the-box kind of way that Backdrop users could have a Civi entity, so to speak, as something to use. So it's a concept I'm playing with right now.
Can I ask a question about Devtools? Is there like a recipe for Orlando or DDev or any of those tools for Backdrop and Civi together?
Jeff, Deputy, he has a Lando recipe, I believe, that he used to set up a project that included both. And I know that Civi itself has a script that allows you to very quickly create any of the CMS options running Civi locally very quickly, and you can specify different things. I don't have that at my fingertips, that information, but that's, so there's kind of two ways you could do that.
Okay. So when you say a script to spin it up locally, like if I'm using a Mac, that means using my native MySQL and PHP, or?
No, it's like,
Or is it also Docker based?
it's, Pete or Herb, you want to jump in here? It's a command line, but it's not using it brings in everything it needs in terms of MySQL and
Okay.
My understanding. I've used it not in the last few years, but.
So are you talking about Lando, or what? I missed that.
The Civi provided tool that lets you spin up.
Oh, yeah, and I've not used it actually. I haven't bothered.
So yeah, but it is available in there's a recipe for Lando, or you can use the Civi tool.
I think you mentioned having it on Pantheon and having to share the database. Was that Drupal or was that Backdrop? And is there a push button install for that on Pantheon, or did you have to configure that all yourself?
That one is Drupal 7 and Civi currently.
Okay.
They'll probably upgrade in the next year or two. Yeah, there's no push button for Backdrop, but it wouldn't be that difficult. And I'd taken over maintenance of the Civi starter kit on Pantheon. And I've managed to reduce the number of patches that are required to a fairly low minimum. So now you can install Civi fairly easily on Drupal 7 on Pantheon, and it's probably the same with Backdrop. I remember, yeah, I think I've actually installed Civi with Backdrop on Pantheon too, but just for testing.
I'll just mention it as well here. There's a Stack Exchange for question and answers for Civi. If you have a question and you'd like feedback, you can post a question here and get a variety of answers and select the right one and all that. Vote them up in the rankings and that kind of thing. And then Civi also has a Mattermost installation for live chat, and I don't think I have my login here, but
For Backdrop specific Civi questions, where's the best place to go?
There's a room within there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a Backdrop room there. Yeah.
In Mattermost, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
chat.civ.org.
Oh, yeah.
And
There you go.
so there's a
Well, we
Backdrop
should give
channel in the Mattermost here.
Oh, we should give the link. Hang on.
So that's like the equivalent of the Zulip or the live chat. So. Anybody got anything else?
What about, I'm sorry if you talked about this already, but if you're upgrading a Drupal 7 site with Civi, I mean, how does the Civi part of that affect the process? Or do you, especially if Civi has its own database, is that even an issue?
Yeah, it's, I haven't had any major snags with upgrades. I've done a couple sites. I've got some more coming, but yeah, I mean, definitely, as always, save everything. But it's pretty, in my experience, there's not big problems.
Well, I mean, you'd be Civi itself, the code isn't going to change, right? From Drupal 7 to Backdrop.
And honestly, even if you had it on another platform, there's a process where you can just clear out the table where it links users to the CMS, and then have an existing Civi installation and connect it to Backdrop. So it's
Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
But if you're going upgrade from Drupal 7 to Backdrop, obviously it's one step simpler because the users still match up. You know.
Thank you.
Did anybody post anything in the chat that didn't get answered? I've been trying to keep an eye on it, but
I didn't see anything that's open still. Definitely worth saving if you guys want to stay connected.
so here's the stats.
Oh, great.
Civi stats here. So yeah, right now, Drupal's 6,800 out of 11,000, looks like.
Yeah.
And Drupal 8 is about 600. Backdrop's down at 74 at the moment, but you know, small but mighty.
There's
So-
74 Backdrop Civi installations. That's
Reported.
that's a pretty good chunk. Are those reals? Like how much do we rely on the stats for like how realistic are they?
I'm not involved in stats collection, but if Aiden maybe knows, it's like he was.
Well, if you, sorry, did you say Neil or Aiden?
Neil too.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
Well, if
Oh,
you report, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, right, Aiden here. Yeah, I mean, the stats are collected automatically. Obviously, some are behind firewalls and that sort of thing, so don't get out. So the numbers are probably, slightly larger than actually reported here. And it does try and do a certain amount to eliminate small test dev sites and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Exactly how it does it, but it does try and filter those out.
And we do encourage everybody who does pair things up to report that so that our numbers can get more accurate.
Like Luke, I'm a little 74 seems like a sizable number for relative to the overall Backdrop community.
And just because I'm thinking that a full function CiviCRM site is very much like a production site. It's not a test. It's not like a little part-time thing. They tend to, we want to be in touch with and support and celebrate those users to the extent that they're there.
I'm with you there.
Okay.
So I have a
I think
question.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Eric.
I can't imagine that there's much crossover, but like if you were going from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7, for example, because that seems like the most straightforward, how would CiviCRM be affected by that, or would it even be affected? Would it just be upgrading the module and then you're done, and maybe running a database update, or is there more to it than that?
Can you clarify?
What's that?
Can you clarify can you say that again in a slightly different way, maybe?
Just doing a major Drupal upgrade. But I'm not saying Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, but Drupal 6 to Drupal 7, because that would seem more straightforward. Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, I suspect, will be a lot more of an effort. But would the upgrade in Drupal affect the installation of CiviCRM in any way, or would that just be whatever, go ahead, do your thing, we're still here?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, it's go ahead and do your thing. I think the term used earlier was, you have a reasonable expectation that things are going to go well.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of thought so, but I wasn't sure. I mean, like, who knows? As well as connected as these are, maybe one affects the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eric, I just saw you pop up. You got anything to contribute here?
Just in terms of that last question, and I've got one project that started on Drupal 4.7 and CiviCRM 3 that is now running Drupal 7 and the latest version of Civi. The Civi part of those upgrades all along that path has been the simple part. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. And even doing that sideways update to backdrop, the Civi part is the part that I don't worry about.
Oh.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate your help.
I see you.
Yeah. Recording